I was in Peru, and we were all we went to Machu Picchu, and we went to a bar, and Frank Sinatra they played the jukebox, and Frank Sinatra was saying, "Oh, I did it my way," and I got hit like a ton of bricks. I got to the top, and I was the most unhappy and empty person on the planet.
Welcome back to the Invest in Yourself podcast. Today I'm joined by Joe Tarasuk, who was a former drug kingpin. He was connected to the Italian Mafia, Cuban Mafia, and cocaine Cowboys. Joe shares how he worked his way up from a street dealer to dealing on a boss level. He explains his whole drug operation, how the drugs were made, and up until the point where they were exported out of the country. Joe eventually got busted and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. He ended up serving less than 2 years without becoming an informant. In today's video, you'll learn why. He is now a free man that has changed his life around and is helping people fight addiction. He has a treatment center. Please subscribe to my channel for more interviews like this. And without further ado, let's get into Joe's story. Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
Hey, Adrian, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really good. I really appreciate you coming on and taking on some time to come on my store to share your redemption story, man. You got a really interesting story. I really enjoyed the book, of course, and I think you got a really good story with a meaningful purpose, and that's why I wanted to hear your story today, man. So again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. This is a real blessing. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, well, I think the best way to get into your story is to go into your background, your early life growing up. I mean, what was that like for you?
Well, I actually grew up in my grandmother's house in D.C. Until the age 3. And, little did I know the background of what that meant and what that was when I was growing up. My grandfather was a bootlegger in the Roaring '20s, and his dad was chief of police in D.C. And,
oh, wow.
He was a very successful gangster, if you want to call it, or back then it was everybody. I don't know how they looked at it. It's a little different. It wasn't drug dealers then, but it's the same process. And he was the talk of the town. All the politicians were at my grandmother's house. In the book, Against All Odds, I think it's right in the beginning of the book. It has a picture of the house that he built on 16th Street. And, it was probably the fanciest house in D.C. He's probably one of the wealthiest guys in D.C. That really built his empire from bootlegging. And he died at age 33. And he was in a fight in a bar and got hit in the head with a gun butt and eventually died. But he was a multimillionaire then. And I never met him, but he had 3 daughters. And my mom was, out of the 3 daughters, the first one that had a boy. And of course, I got named after my grandfather. And so, they praised and worshiped my grandfather, but, was a lot of dysfunction in the family and, drinking and partying. That was just out of hand. I was just making a list the other day of, I call it family curses. That's what I learned. I had to, I was bred to do what I did. I was set up by the atmosphere and the talk of what he was. And here I am named after him and not even understanding all this way of life. And then, getting through high school, and I was dyslexic. So, I really struggled getting comfortable in class, didn't feel very normal as a young kid. And also I had an experience when I was I'm sorry about jumping around, but when I was very young, about 7 years old, I had an experience of seeing an angel, believe it or not. And that I didn't know what that meant. I was emptying some trash in a little house next to a woods. We were very poor back then, my mom and dad. I ran in the house and one of my mom to see, come outside and look at this. I see it was over a tree. And so that was an experience that, God kind of marked me with. And then it wasn't long after that, I got sexually abused when I was young. And that really showed me, I fell into a darkness that I can only explain. It followed me my whole life until I was age 43, and I'll kind of get to that. But so I found out there was some evil in the world, and then there was this light, this God thing that happened to me. And but going through high school, grade school and stuff, and I kind of explained the background. Really struggled in class, but then I found in sports I could really prosper. I was a very good athlete. Football, wrestling, and track. I was the captain of the wrestling team, captain of the football team. And when I graduated, I was athlete of the year. So, but I got, and then I got a scholarship for wrestling and went into class. Did the first semester of wrestling. I got through wrestling, and then I got to the end. And one thing, every day I drove to school, and I was afraid. I had fear when I woke up that somebody was going to call on me and I'd have to answer. And I never passed one test in school. I never learned how to read and write. I got passed because of my athletic skill.
Wow.
And I was a good, sweet kid.
Yeah. So they helped you out.
Yeah. But after wrestling season, I just couldn't handle it anymore. And then, in high school, I smoked pot once, and then somebody introduced me to cocaine, and that kind of solved all my problems. It kind of made me feel like Superman for a little while, and I didn't worry about my past. And then it really struck me, with my grandfather, and I kind of stepped out of the world and said, I'm going to do this my way and not feel so bad about myself. And I was a captain of a wrestling team, so why can't I get a few guys together and lead this little family that I started? And I believe me, I paid my dues coming up through the drug market and all the con men and all the stealing and all the things you have to pass through to get to. I had an insatiable drive to get to the top, and
right.
It was local drug guys, and then I went. My uncle, which was a real big influence on me. He was a bartender down in Miami, and he had a guy that used to be Frank Sinatra's captain on his boat, and Dean Martin. And
wow.
Him and some guys were smuggling pot. Actually working with the CIA. He was an ex-military guy. My buddy, my uncle introduced me to him, and we got along. I found somebody I could trust, and then I got involved with the cocaine Cowboys in Fort Lauderdale. And then it wasn't long after that I got into the Cuban Mafia down in the Keys. And then I was another guy I went to high school with, did some prison time, and I kept visiting him in prison, and would smuggle in some cocaine and some cigarettes. Hollered at the cigarette and put cocaine in. I gave, and he was he got in touch with a guy in jail. His dad was ran one of the sections, East Houston Street in New York, the garment section. His dad was in the mafia. I'm not going to say any names, but
okay, yeah.
So when my buddy got out of jail, me and him went to New York, and we were on East Houston Street. And this was my young days in the drug world. I've never done heroin, or I love cocaine, and I hadn't reached any plateau of real success yet. And so we got on East Houston Street. Two guys met us, and East Houston, it's a Spanish community. It's like the Spanish mafia in mixed in with the New York mafia. And two guys walked us into this building. They both were strapped up, and every floor had somebody looking out the window, watching who was coming and going. We got to the top of the building, and then I don't want to say the guy's name, but anyway, his dad pulled up, and a big limousine, and white hair, dressed to the max, comes upstairs, and said, what are these guys doing here? And he swore for our safety that we were in with them. And the first time I did heroin, somebody took a thing and put a big line down, and they were showing us how to cut it, and I snorted that up that line, and my buddy snorted up a line, and then we left and got in the cab. And by the time we got to the train station, my buddy couldn't walk or see. He just went blind. So I left him, put the stash in my shoe, got on the train, and came back. So that was my start in the heroin business.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you able to say what crime family it was? There's the 5 families.
I just say it was the garment. That's all that I knew. And I knew his son's name, and his son would go back and forth. I don't know that part. It's probably best I don't.
Oh yeah, I mean there was quite a few families up there in New York, the Italian mob, and I mean there was definitely some guys that were involved with selling drugs, and as much as they don't say they weren't involved with being involved with drugs and stuff, there was quite a few guys that were actually doing that were in that Italian mob. But I mean, you made your your connections with all these different groups, like you said, like before, the Cocaine Cowboys, the Cuban Mafia, and all this. So how did you get into those positions to where you were able to prove yourself?
So I really, I have until this same day, if I give somebody my word, I will die. I would have died to keep my word with them. And that was the same thing about making payments. So I got recognized on the streets as some guy that would make it pay his bills. And that really, I was in, with the Black community in DC, I was in a lot of different cultures to move up. And I was manipulated so much by these young guys in the mobs, the Cuban family and the Cocaine Cowboys. I moved in pretty deep with them, but I saw how they were manipulating, and it was how they controlled the market. And so I realized if I could never be the boss if I didn't have my own market.
So did you not want to join them then? Like,
well, I was joining them, but I was searching for my way. I thought I could do a better job on how they ran things. I wanted a family where we would die for each other. And they were just manipulating and using people up, and their lawyers involved, and who could they tell on next? It was really, it wasn't, I had a bloodline that was very successful. And even though I never met my grandfather, I just saw the outcome of where he got himself. And that only happens from trust and it's just like a football game. If you all are on the same line or all working together, man, you become the champion. So you got to trust your guy behind you. It's the same thing in the military. It's saying, you gotta get that family really tightened. So I built this family, and I got recognized. There was somebody coming in from Bolivia that sold some to one of my friends, and I realized this is what I was after. I had to get to the source because it was the best cocaine. I'd been doing cocaine for 8-10 years, and there was nothing like I just experienced. And it was a little girl was a maid, and sold some, but she had a friend in Bolivia. And so I got some of that and started selling for them, the guy that was receiving it. And they got word back in Bolivia that there was a guy that was doing very well, paying his bills. And they knew at the end of the line, there was somebody they wanted to move up. I kind of moved up the chain. Mm-hmm. A lot of the guys kind of couldn't handle the pressure of what it took to have the police running after you and learning how to move and negotiate and learn how to stay alive. And that's what I kind of recognized I had a gift. It seemed like there was something protecting me and keeping me moving. And I didn't understand all that. And as we go down the road, it kind of leads to where I'm at today.
Yeah. But, well, what else? When did you? So you formed your own crew, right? I mean, but you were front lines and you were going over the border to Bolivia or,
Well,
flying there and
I
whatnot?
hadn't gone to Bolivia yet, but I'm getting
No.
ready to go there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, before you even went to Bolivia, then, so when did you form the crew? Was it before or after?
Well, I was the guy in jail, the guy that I went and visited in jail. We were high school friends, and he got arrested for bank robbery, and he was as bold as anybody, and we became brothers. Kind of this black guy, really trustworthy. And then the guy in the military that was friends with my uncle in Miami, he could speak Spanish. 82nd Airborne, had been. Working with the CIA, bringing in. I mean, it all collapsed on him after they got what they wanted. So I had two guys that were, I could trust, and that's where we really started. And then I got the connection with Bolivia, and I worked for them for about 5 years before the boss came from Bolivia and came visit me in my house, and then he took one of my guys and me to Bolivia, and we traveled. We were in family. It was the real deal. And
what did you get to see?
He was friends. His best friend was Ortega from Panama. It was they wanted me to meet him, Ortega, and I didn't want to really be around. I couldn't tell if I was being set up, if this was the DEA and the FBI. They wanted to get to Ortega, and I don't know if they just let me move under these guys to find out. So it's so deep, it's insanity. But so anyway, it was about, I guess I had been working with this upper echelon Bolivian. I became the family member. Right at the end of that, I knew. Actually, I was in Peru, and we went to Machu Picchu, and there's some pictures in the book about that.
Oh, yeah.
But we went to a bar, and Frank Sinatra they played the jukebox, and Frank Sinatra was saying, "Oh, I did it my way." And, I got hit like a ton of bricks. I got to the top, and I was the most unhappy and empty person on the planet. I kind of wondered what is it all about, and but I still had a big drug habit. Even though I wanted to get out, I couldn't figure out how can I support my lifestyle and get out of selling drugs. And so anyway, I opened up a recording studio. It was called Flamingo Recording Studio, and it took me about 4 years to learn the music trade. And I had a very successful artist. I said, the only way I'm going to be able to be successful is if I make a hit record. And you have to have a vocalist, no matter what band. The vocalist is the star. And this guy showed up at the studio that had already done a couple albums with Warner Brothers. If you would put him in a room with Stevie Wonder and him, you would have picked him over Stevie Wonder. I mean, he had an unbelievable voice, but the record industry blackballed him because it was really a cult. He had like 6 wives, and
what was his name? Doc, wasn't it?
Well, Doc is a nickname. That's not his real name, but Doc was his. And that's another one I don't want to say name, but I learned the music business, but that was my real introduction to knowing about God and knowing about Satan. So I realized my gift was walking under a dark influence. That's how I got used. I have a gift. Everybody's got a gift. You got a gift. I got a gift, and we can use it for the world, or we can use it for God's kingdom. And Satan had me bound to my flesh and everything that would be my fleshly desires were only getting satisfied through that drug life and the girls and all the things that come along with that kind of understanding. And I just got to so anyway, after that Frank Sinatra song, I quit. I tried to quit selling. I had a big stash. I think I had enough money. I think I had $40,000 or $50,000. You're never rich because my drug habit would always spin me like a top.
Well, how long was your drug habit?
It was about 15 years, but the last 5 years, I probably drank a fifth of Crown Royal a day, and went through a quarter ounce of Coke. And I mean, the Coke that I was getting was I could control the market because there wasn't any better Coke. And when I went out to Bolivia with my family, they actually took me out and we cooked it together. They showed me how to make it. I was way out in a farm, so I learned it. It was really.
They let you film it too, didn't they?
Yeah, well, actually, they did. My partner, filmed some of it. Yes, he did. Yeah, and Ronnie Reagan was in office, and if he would have heard the film, he would have come after us.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, man. But I mean, that they were that trustful with you. These
I
Bolivian
was
people.
family. This was family. And you'll see at the end of when I get arrested, But anyway, so I was working in the studio with this gentleman, and we were working on an album for about 2 years. I was the money guy, and we were getting ready to do another big deal with I think a lot of the record companies were interested because they wanted to see if somebody could keep this guy in line and produce music. And of course, it's a moneymaker. He had the gift. He is unbelievable. So at the end, after 2 years, I ran out of money. I ran out of anything to get high with. And so my family, my boss's wife actually called me from from Miami, and she says, "Oh, I just got in here. You want to come down?" And I said, "No." Usually, I always had Barry, my guy, drive. I kind of learned how to do this without getting myself being vulnerable to being arrested. So I was very wise in how to move and how to stay undercover, and so they could never really nab me getting arrested with drugs. But I was at the point, my friend Barry was in Colombia. He had a friend that had a farm there. And I said, well, I'm going to go drive it back. And my mental condition was, I was at the edge of wondering if I should stay alive. What is this about? What is this darkness that I've been walking in, since I was young, when I got molested when I was young, and not being able to read and write is very difficult to function in the world and feel like you're part of the world. So I always felt like I was outside the world. And my drug habit, I mean, it's so insane. What was I doing? What was life about? Did I really have a purpose? And so before I went to Miami, I didn't know God, but I actually, this was my first prayer. I said, God, I can't stop myself. If you stop me, I'll surrender to you. And so I got on the plane, was coming back, insanity, got the cocaine. It was unbelievable. Had my girlfriend with me, stopped at my uncle's, still, up for 3 or 4 days. You live paranoid, and coming back, I was afraid to stop at a hotel to sleep because, I knew people were watching me. That was my life. People were trying to figure out how to bust me or rob me, or, that's what the life is as a drug dealer or a crime figure. Somebody's going to take you out sooner or later.
Oh yeah, constantly plotting.
Yeah. So anyway, going down the road in Woodbine, Georgia, 3 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden I seen the lights on behind me and pulled me over. And I had the stuff here. I had the cocaine hidden. I had a Cadillac. I had a gangster hat on. One of the NFL football players, friends of mine, I had his hat. I had a velvet jacket on. $200 or $300 shoes. I was definitely out there in reality.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A policeman put me in the back of his car, and I threw my hands up and I said, "I'm yours." That's where it all started. That's where it started. And, I got put into Woodbine County Jail, and the sheriff is named Bill Smith. And it was so wild. So I was in the pod, and
Mm-hmm.
I,
The
I
holding
was there
cell.
before they sentence you. You really don't get much freedom. You don't get to do much when you're in jail. After you're sentenced, then you can be a trustee, or it's kind of like. And so I got sentenced about 3 months in, and
I was going to say you were supposed to get 35 years too.
yeah, I got sentenced to 35 years.
Oh, okay. So that was your. He
Yeah,
said, "All right, this is what you're getting."
Interstate transportation. And I was walking back from the court, and I could hardly. My legs were like rubber. I said, "Oh my goodness!" I surrendered to God, and now what's going on? And I walked into the office, and Bill Smith, his office is right before they take you back to the pods, and my girlfriend was there pleading, "Would you please talk to Joe? Would you please talk to Joe?" And she gave me. And so when I came in through the court after the court, he grabbed me and pulled me in his room, and he's got this long drawn Southern accent. He says, "Son, are you guilty?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm guilty." And he said, "You're the first guilty inmate I've ever had in my jail." So that's how we started. That's how my friendship started with him. He says, "Well, you know what? It was an election year." He says, we got this drug program. It's called Say No to Drugs." And he says, "I'm going to let you go ride around with me, and you can tell your testimony, and maybe that will help you with your parole or something." And so I left that meeting with hope, and that I had hope out of nowhere. It wasn't 20 minutes. I just got 35 years, and now I've got some hope. Somebody's going to, I'm going to get a break somehow.
Yeah, because if you finished the program, you would have got 18 months or whatever is what the agreement, what it was, right?
There was no agreement.
There was no agreement.
There was no agreement. He said, after we became friends, I said, so it was I had about 16 months left after that. And then I started going out and spending time with him. I became a trustee in the kitchen, and I was out of the jail probably 4 days out of the week, riding around, driving him. He had a bad hip. We would go to different places. Then I ended up going back to Charleston on the weekends with him. I drove him down there to stay with his family. When we came back, he had a girlfriend then, and I'd drop him off with his girlfriends, and then I would drive myself back to the jail. It
That's
was
something. They had to trust you a lot to do that.
It was unbelievable. It blew my mind. It really gave me hope. And then the guard started taking me. Jim Proctor, he's sheriff of the Woodbine County Jail now. He started taking me to church on Sunday. He wanted to be a priest, but they told him he had to get a job, and he got a job at the jail. And his family was very influential. His uncle was Judge Jim Proctor, and that's who they went and talked to get me down to 18 months. I became friends with the people at the church. I became friends with him. So God put his hand on me, and I started fasting and praying, and really turning my life over to God in jail. I didn't have any mentors. I just wanted a new life. I knew where I'd been. I knew what darkness was, and I said there has to be more to life than this. There's no God. If this is all there is, it's not worth living. I want this new part, and God started showing me favor in jail. And then in 18 months, they like I said, the sheriff and Jim, which his uncle, they went and talked to him, and they said, "Okay, we're getting you you're out." And I couldn't, that was how it's happened.
Now, I was going to say, was there any temptations or anything in prison?
Yeah, after I got out, so I was walking really strong. The only guy, my girlfriend had a bond, and so I signed papers before court so they would release her, because she was with me when I got arrested. So and my family or her family wouldn't lend us $1,000 for her bond. So when I was in jail, I called up one of my gangster friends in DC. I said, could you send me down $1,000? He said, yeah. So when I got out, the first thing I did is I had a small job. I had $300. I went back to his house down in DC and gave him the $300 because I wanted to keep my word. But of course, he rolled up a joint, and I smoked a joint on the way home and felt horrible. In spiritual terms, we have a fleshly desire, and then we have a spiritual desire. And my flesh wasn't under control yet. My thinking, I wanted it, but if we know about what sin nature is, and we're all born in it, my sin nature still had power over me. So, believe it or not, my girlfriend and I wanted to live God's way. I said, well, I got to marry you. I can't just keep sleeping with you and not marry you. So we went back to Georgia. In that little church I started going to when I was in jail, the sheriff and Jim was the best man, and the sheriff gave my wife away to me in this little town. Had about 25 people in the community, and I had everybody was really friends with me in the community, and that's where I got married. And then on my honeymoon, I went back to Florida and had some cocaine there. I said, oh, just one more time. And then I got high, and I saw what it did to my wife. I really realized my influence in the world is the insanity that I bring. Maybe I just got high, but what it does to others. And then I realized I cannot I'm going to go backwards. And then I had a little spiritual war talk with the guy, Satan. And then I had the power of Jesus with me. I said, Satan, you'll never get me again. And that's been since 1989. I never had a urge to use again since then.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. And then, when I got back, after that incident, I got back, met my parole officer, got on parole, got a job as a laborer. My next door neighbor had a construction company. I was making $8 an hour, and I was so happy. I was used to briefcase full of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and here I am, $8 an hour, and I'm happy as I've ever been in my life. And so it took about 2 years for my family to really believe this was real.
I'm sure, yeah, because there's a reason for that. That you had to prove yourself again.
Yeah. We all do. People they're used to us telling a good story and then doing whatever we want to. But
right.
So that went on, and then I had a flooring business before I was arrested. It was an installation company I used to have, kind of an undercover. While I was dealing, I had a company to make everybody happy, the family. So anyway, I knew that trade. I got a job with a Jewish man that was. We were really good friends, and he says, "Oh, you need that God thing? That's okay." But he understood I couldn't read and write well, but he started letting me do blueprints. And then it wasn't about a year and a half with him. I had an opportunity to open my own business. He wanted me to go a salary. I said, well, if I'm going to go out and sell, I'm going to do it for myself. So I went to another friend that owned a cabinet shop, and I opened a little carpet company. And I didn't take a salary, and I saved up $26,000. And in the meantime, the FBI was calling me every week. They had a case against the sheriff. They tried to nail him, and they said, "Well, if you're not a good witness, you're going back to jail."
What was the case against him? What did they want?
Yeah, well, there was he got in trouble. They tried to say for spending he's confiscated $22 million off of 95. And he went on TV and said, I'm not going to let the judges and lawyers keep robbing the community. And I'm going to get the money before the drug dealers go to Florida. And so he just shook the hornet's nest in Woodbine, Georgia. You can probably look it up and find out. And they had like 26 counts of stuff that they tried to get me to testify. If I would have told them that he took me back to Georgia, not Georgia, but Charleston, taking an inmate out of state, they would have nailed it. But I wasn't going to give up any information. I've been through some interrogations before with the police department. And, they're only doing that because they don't know what they want you to tell them what they want to know. And if you don't tell them, so he went out of his way for me, and they had like 54 counts, and they couldn't get anything on him. They had to let him go, but they, he was became, politics is really tough in the political arena. So,
oh yeah, I'm sure. No doubt they get intense.
When money's involved and somebody thinks they're going to get that power and have that money, and the judges and the lawyers all waiting, he got them all steaming.
Yeah,
you should look him up. He did a lot of.
What's his full name?
Bill Smith.
Bill Smith.
He did a lot of interviews on America's Most Wanted. He's an ex-FBI agent. He was in the FBI for like 15 years before he became sheriff. So I mean, he had a lot of clout and power.
I'm sure.
And so anyway, where am I at? Getting married, coming back, starting over, open the business, and then God just started blessing me again. I had a business in D.C., Craft Masters of D.C., Craft Masters of Maryland. My mom worked with me, and I got the family piece of property. I subdivided it. I built 4 houses, and things couldn't have been better in my life. I mean, I was and all my old friends came back and said, "What are you doing? Are you going to get back into?" They thought I was going to come out of retirement. This new life I had was unbelievable, and that's why the first interview, the other podcast I did, I was really trying to encourage guys incarcerated that there is hope for a new life, and there is a new way to do things, and that's what God really let me prosper. And then my first wife, my girlfriend that I got arrested with, always started drinking, and then she got doing OxyContin, and eventually, after 18 years of running the business and being together, she overdosed with OxyContin, and that was I did everything I could as a husband to help her through that. I was a dedicated husband. I never gave up on her. But that was a real learning ground for me, and plus my addiction to help other guys in addiction. So I took that, and God gave me a vision of opening up a center, and helping guys. I did prison ministry for about 10 years. Before I did this, as I was out, I went back with another couple church guys, and I did that every weekend. I was dedicated to that. I got a little, when I was in sports, I threw all my trophies away because I got so mad. I said, I can't, I was real good, but I wasn't fast. I could never get anywhere. I could never go to the next level.
So you're just hard on yourself, and you threw them away?
Well, I knew sports wasn't going to be my life. But I got one little award for being volunteer of the year for prison ministry, and that was probably my most cherished thing of helping other guys help. We're in such a spiritual war, untangling our family curses and all the things we've been taught. It's hard to unravel all that and get to the core person. And understanding, there's a purpose, and we can have an unbelievable life if we can get some of the worldly things or all the worldly things out of our thoughts and mind. And so that's what I really try to help guys. Where I'm at now is Crossroad Freedom Center. So I got remarried. Me and my wife, I sold everything I had, houses, property, tried to pay all my, debts off, and there was I was searching almost 15 years for a place to open a recovery center for men. Actually, eventually women. I just don't have the money yet to do it. But and so this will be our 14th year or 14th year at Crossroad Freedom Center in Frederick.
Wow, so it's been around for a while.
Yeah, it's a year-long program, and I kind of mentor or disciple guys that are struggling with drug addiction, or any addiction that would hinder them in their life, and how do you have a marriage that is unstoppable? A lot of things that I try to help guys find out who they can be, and we all live a lie for so long, or we never really run. If we dig deep enough, we can find out who we really are, and so that's kind of where I'm at. And one thing I wanted to show you. So sometimes when I do a talk, these are my old shackles. My first testimony.
Oh, you got them.
I still got them, and I never want to forget who I was, because I'm not that guy anymore. I keep these on. I keep these with me, and sometimes I bring them out when I do a talk somewhere. But I've had an unbelievable, blessed life. Even when I was on the dark side, God let me experience it all, so I could tell the difference.
Yeah. No, I mean that is really awesome that you were able to change it all around and be able to turn your negative into some kind of positive and speak and be able to give others motivation and hope, and not even just tell your story. I mean, you actually spend time with these individuals from your center now that you have. I mean, you spend all, how much ever time you dedicate with them. It's not like, you're speaking one and done. It's like, you're there front line, man, of course.
I'm living on the property. Me and my wife live here, so I'm 24/7. I walk with them. If they can't see it's real, they're not going to believe it. So, I have to walk the talk,
Exactly.
If I tell them something, and I have no business telling them anything if I can't back it up and walk it.
That's 100% true.
Same way I live my drug life. But now I'm on God's side. I say I'm a gangster for God.
Well, that's a positive. That's way better than being on the other side, man.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and I've got a wife that's God has blessed me. And I tell this this is our anniversary's January 2nd. We've been married 14 years, and we've never had an argument.
Really? That's insane. Oh, that's awesome.
I swear to it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, he must get along.
There is a sweet spot we all can get to, and that's what I try to help the guys see. And we got 16 acres. We have it was a bank foreclosure when we bought it, and like I said, I put it all on the table, and everything I had, everything, every cent, we put it. She sold her townhouse. We put it in there. When we first met, I told her this vision. I said she'll never talk to me again, or she's going to be on board. And she stayed with me.
She's still around, man. After 14 years, she's seeing the vision too.
Yeah,
believing in it.
And so it's been 14 years. I've got 10 guys now. We're rezoning it. Like I said, this building was built in 1862, and it was collapsing. It used to be a French restaurant. It was a sanitarium for women back in the early 1900s. And we remodeled it through the years. We remodeled everything. I got sprinkler system. I've got a commercial kitchen. One of the guys we're teaching to be a chef. And hopefully we can rezone and get 20 guys. And I'm going to keep 4 rooms open for guys in prison for reentry. So, there's a couple church groups that go into jail that are searching and see if somebody really wants a new life, and they can try what I got. I can take them to drink water, but I can't make them drink. No, if they're willing to try it, it works. I promise. So.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I appreciate you coming on my show and sharing your story and your motivation and just everything that you've been through, how it made you the person you are today. I mean, you had to go through a whole lot of stuff, and luckily you were able to turn it around. Not a lot of people that were involved in life were able to turn it around. They either got life in prison or they ended up dying, man. But you're here sharing your story, man. You're, like I said in that book review, I was like, this man's lucky to be here to, share this story at all. He shouldn't be here, man. But, God had other plans for you.
Yeah, so. I didn't share a lot of the real rough stuff, but I've been through it, and I've been blessed, and I want to share the blessing. there's a reason for what I went through and survived. And like I said, there's nothing in this world that I could be more happy with than what I'm doing. There is no greater gift I could ask for. And I'm 70 years old. I've been
70.
fasting. Yeah, I've been fasting and praying since jail. I prayed for an early release and it got granted. I'm a pretty much of a health guy.
Yeah, you look healthy.
Juicing all those years. Hopefully I got another 10 years left. I'm in my fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So, I want to make the best of it and leave. I'm really interested in the next generation. I'm really a foundational builder and trying to start some momentum to help some people find this unbelievable life that's available. So.
Yeah, we'll keep it up, man. I'll be in, like I said, if you need help or anything that you need from me, or you have some other people that you might think would be cool, man, you just let me know. But I'll, of course, put your book in the video description. And you got any final words that you want to leave the people
I've
with?
got another book coming, and it's called
Yeah.
Experiencing God at Your Crossroads. So we all have a crossroads in our life. We just happen to be called Crossroad Freedom Center. But I've been working on it for about 5 years. It's going to take a couple more years. And like I said, this is the first thing that I ever written on my own. The first book I did on tape, and I had ghostwriters. And then my wife finished it. Yeah, because of my reading. So I've really taught myself how to read and write the last 15 years. So that's really, this will be a book that I'll be promoting in hopefully I can get it done in the next 6 months.
Oh, good. I mean, that's awesome, man. Like you said, you didn't know how to read, write, do any of that, and to write your own book, that's got to take a lot, man. That's got to take a lot of time, energy, and everything. That's amazing, man. I'm glad you learned that.
All things are possible with God. I'll just say that.
That's true. Well, I'll just, thank you, Joe, for coming on, and I'll just end it right there.
Joe has got a really intense story. He was involved in a lot of bad things. What matters now is that he is out of that life and helping people with addiction. I believe Joe has got a really great redemption story. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Please comment any key takeaways that you got from this interview with Joe. Please share this with all the people you think will enjoy this type of interview. Also, please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interviews like this. At the end of this video, a playlist will pop up of all my other interviews I've done in the past. Thank you again, and we'll see you on the next one.